Welcome to our podcast. This is Friends on Fire.
I'm Mike. I'm a lifelong devotee of financial independence. I even wrote a book about it.
And I'm Maggie, a newer convert, but just as passionate, especially on the intersection of minimalism and financial independence.
We're one and the same.
We are two like-minded friends who believe that talking about money with your friends and family opens the door to financial well-being.
The Friends on Fire podcast is about dispelling myths, building financial acumen, and sharing your financial independence journey with the people you care about.
This is Friends on Fire.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Maggie.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. We are going to talk about some free stuff today via public libraries and how awesome and amazing they are. But I was going to get us started with two fun little frugal stories.
Okay.
Unless you have some fun frugal stories to tell me.
No, but I do have a different idea to get us started on this episode.
Ooh, what is it?
Maggie's Minute on the Mic. Quick.
What
is your favorite book of all time?
Oh my gosh.
You have 60 seconds.
Okay, can I name two?
Yes.
One is The Art of Happiness.
Okay.
But that's, and let me get a fiction and a nonfiction in, okay? That's my favorite nonfiction book of all time. Art of Happiness, great book. We'll put a link in the show notes. My favorite, what I will tell you, I have a lot of favorite fiction books. One of them that comes to mind is Beautiful Ruins. Have you heard of it? It's by,
Never.
I think, Jesse Walters. It's set in Cinque Terre, Italy. The reason it's my favorite book, you're going to get a story, by the way, you're not going to just get an answer, is because Greg recommended it to me when we first met, when we first started dating. And it was like something, it was just a great book, honestly. But it was also like kind of something we bonded over, and I remembered about him. And now we're going to Cinque Terre together this summer. So I don't know, it's just on my mind when you asked that.
All right. Pretty good answers.
Okay. That's a good question. That was way more on topic than mine are today. But just two quick, fun, frugal stories.
All right.
We should probably share frugal things happening in our life more often. One is I was just before we were coming to record this, I was enjoying, I couldn't think of the word. I was like appreciating a pair of shoes that I have that I put in the washing. I just threw them in with clothes yesterday into the washing machine because they were looking kind of like dirty and dingy. And I never want to wear them as a result. And I was like, I bet I could wash these. They're natives. I've had them for years and they seem pretty washable. I didn't even look to see if they were, honestly. And I threw them in the wash with some good Tide. It came out looking brand new. And just kind of, it's like you have a new pair of shoes, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm not sure that was a congratulations, but I'll take it. And then I also have been doing some what do you call it? Like curb picking, like picking up trash off other people's trash off the curb.
I think it's just called picking up trash.
Okay, picking up trash. It's not trash. People put it out hoping someone will take it.
Other people's trash, your
my treasure,
or whatever
exactly.
it is.
I think I did some Instagram stories about this a few weeks ago, but I, like a couple weeks ago, I got 2 Chase lounges and for my back deck, and a really nice umbrella and stand that was like fully functioning. It was the style I would have picked out. It was great. And one of my kids gave me a hard time about it. And then one of my kids swore that we've always owned that umbrella. And I was like, that umbrella is new. We've never had an umbrella on our deck before. So it was just funny, the responses I got from different kids. And then the other day there was an office chair, but with both of these were from people on my street. And they're both in front of really nice houses too. So they're getting rid of some good stuff. It was like a brand new looking office chair. I'm looking at it right now. I think I showed it to you. Did I show it to you one day, Mike? Yeah. It's really nice. And it matches the Friends on Fire color scheme a little bit. It's got some orange in it.
Perfect.
It's got it's very modern looking. It's super comfortable. It's like nice office chairs are very expensive. So anyways, I got that now. Not even sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but I got 3 kids and desks, and who knows when COVID comes back and we're virtual schooling again. You gotta be prepared.
What the hell are we talking about, Maggie?
Libraries.
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 Yeah. Okay.
So, way to bring us back in. Let's get into this show. So we are going to talk about how amazing public libraries are. So we already pay for this service. Do you know that, Mike? through your tax dollars? You were funding public
I don't think I've ever
libraries.
thought about it, but that makes sense.
Yeah, so I like to call it free, but you're paying for it. So that's another reason why you should want to get the value from it. And public libraries, they're not just books anymore. They offer an amazing volume, pun intended, of services and amenities that most people are not fully familiar with, right? And so we're going to get into what some of those really cool things are that you can get from your public library that you may not realize.
And Maggie,
yeah.
This is another good opportunity for me to bestow upon you a compliment.
It's my compliment smile face. I'm like so excited.
I know you're super excited about it. Your recommendation to get a library card and get the Libby app and make that the way that I get audiobooks and Kindle books was truly life-changing.
How were you getting them before that?
I just, one, I was not reading as much as I wanted to, probably because of just like the barriers to go find books. I was not listening to audiobooks at all. And this changed my life. I went from reading, like a handful of books to like 30, 40, 50 books
like
a year.
Book a week. Yeah.
I am smarter because of it. I am more relaxed because of it. I have more enjoyable times reading and listening to books.
Yeah,
this was
awesome.
Life-changing, Maggie.
Wow, that is awesome. That's great to hear. I will say, it was life-changing for me too, in a different way, because I actually spent a lot of money on books. I had an Audible subscription. Every time I wanted
a book,
right?
You and Greg,
me and Greg both had one. Yeah, and you can actually link them. So we had the pleasure of enjoying each other's books, but we both still paid $15 a month each, so $30 a month, so $300 plus a year that we're getting for free now through Libby. And then also every time I wanted a physical book, which was fairly often because I do enjoy reading, and I certainly, well, let's say I enjoyed buying books. Sometimes I enjoyed reading them.
Yeah.
But every time I wanted a book, I wouldn't even think twice. I'd go to Amazon and I'd just buy a book, and it'd be at my house the next day. And then it would sit on my shelf for 6 months to 5 years before I would read it, if ever. And so I also rediscovered it, and I rediscovered it. I was trying to think back to when, and I think it was after I had Kate, my first child, and first and only child that I have birthed. And it was really fun to take the kids to the library and like let them explore all the books. And it was like it was an easy activity and outing. And it was, like trying to buy a kid one book and get them into it, but being able to take a kid there and be like, hey, you can get whatever books you want from here and we can bring them home. They were like fascinated by it and loved it. When they're older now and not as into that idea now.
Not easily fooled.
Yeah, they loved it when they were kids, right? And we would go, and that was like an activity for the kids. And we'll get into more of that. But so like I said, I used to spend literally hundreds, probably $500 to $1,000 between Audible and physically buying books every year. And I'm saving that by leveraging my public library and getting a ton of other benefits, which we'll get into. And there's actually, there's a number of sites that have created things like this, but we'll put one in the show notes. There's actually a library value calculator that you can kind of like click all the different ways you're using it, and it will estimate how much you're saving, which is just kind of a fun thing to do. And I think it's Libby or my library's website. I can't remember which, that actually, like when I check out a book, I think at the bottom of the slip, when you physically go into the library, it gives you like an estimate of how much you've saved by checking out books, by the volume of books you've checked out that year. It's a cool little stat. I don't know, just like a little bit of affirmation. Okay. Speaking of that, I put some stories on social media yesterday because I knew we were recording this episode, Mike. And I asked a question of who uses their public library on a regular basis. And we got hundreds of responses. And it was 71% said yes, they use their public librry on a regular basis. And 29% said no. And then I also asked for some tips on I'm trying to think how I worded it. I said, what's your favorite thing about the public library, and or any fun library tips to share? And I'll share a few at the end, because most of what was shared is stuff we had already captured, but there were like one or two kind of things that were different than the way I had said it or positioned it. So we'll share those at the end also, but it's fun. We need to do more of like pulling in some social media commentary. Mike, let's start with just the role of public libraries, because I think it's important to just take a step back. Like I reminded you that we're paying for public libraries as part of our tax dollars. That's most of they get some private funding through local donors and stuff also, but most of what is funding a public library is our tax dollars. Mm-hmm. And there's just some, like, when you think about the role that they play in society, it's a really important role, actually. And then we'll get into some tips. But like, so public libraries in general, they offer free educational resources to everyone and anyone, right? So this is a quote from another site, but public libraries in the United States play an essential role in providing safe, accessible, and 100% free educational resource centers for every member in communities across the country. At the library, it doesn't matter how much money you make because every resource there is free of charge, including books, internet access, and educational and professional training programs. Individuals and families, no matter their economic status, can count on their libraries to provide them with the resources they need to succeed and the answers to important questions they otherwise can't find. That was just like a nice little write-up.
Yeah, that is nice.
It'd be great if I sourced it. I'll source it on our show notes because I now can't remember where I got it from. And then, some of the other kind of roles that public libraries play in society is, they help make communities healthier and keep them connected. There's just to think about kind of the things that happen, and we'll talk about it in some of the examples of just the services. But they help boost local economies. They help create connection in communities and networks. And they're also often a safe refuge for homeless and underserved populations. So I know at my local public library that I go to frequently, I see a number of people that I know are homeless coming in and using the computers. And sometimes they're kind of, out front sometimes also. And it's a place that they're able to kind of, again, like a safe refuge, and where they're able to also access different resources.
And they also play an important part in government, because aren't like all libraries voting stations?
I don't know if they all are. I actually vote at like schools and other places. I don't know if all libraries are voting stations.
Every library I drive by seems to be a polling station.
Yeah, they certainly could be. And you're right. They do. There's a lot of other services that they kind of offer in the community like that. Okay, so let's get in. We're going to get into like all of the different services and types of things you may not realize your public library offers. But before we do that, I just want to start with some different tips on how to leverage the library that I think will help as we talk about what they offer.
So the first thing, and related to the theme of this show, is that like as we go through this list of things that you can be getting, think about those expenses in your life and try to calculate, at least roughly, how much you could be saving if you get all of these things for free at the library instead of paying for them.
Yeah, exactly. And, another kind of, this is less a tip and more a caveat, but every location has different books and resources. And, some of the different services we're going to mention may not be offered at every single library. They're pretty common these days. But your local location may offer some things that, have kind of a unique need that's come up in your market where they've been able to provide that service. And so just recognize that the actual services may be different. And then also the book selection at every library is different. Some libraries are bigger and have a larger book selection, especially digital. They just can vary. And on that point, you can actually join multiple libraries. When you join a library, you have to show some sort of proof of address and residency, but you could do that like where your parents live and kind of get a card through them. You can, like, we have a rental property in a different county in Atlanta, and I've joined that library. And I have both of them. We'll talk about kind of how this works later, but I have both of them loaded in my Libby app, which we'll get into what that is. And so when I get digital books, audiobooks, or like Kindle style ebooks, I actually will search both libraries. And there's many times when one library has a book and the other doesn't. It's more often that one library has it available right now for me, and the other one, there's like a waiting list. And so I've heard from multiple people, including some of the social media tips, to like join multiple libraries if you can, because the book selection and availability can sometimes be different.
And this also applies to kids' books as well. So I don't think either of us buy our kids' books, especially when they are available at the library. They're also available via Libby. So we can download kids' books, put them on a Kindle, and have them read it. We don't have to buy them.
Yeah. We do that with audiobooks on like road trips too for kids. I remember we were in Canada, we listened to like the whole Ramona series. The kids were younger then and were like really into it.
So if you do go to the library and you don't find what you want, you could ask the library to get it for you. They will either buy it, they can transfer it from another library. And so just because there might be a limited selection of what you are looking for does not mean that it is always that way. You have some influence over this because, again, it is a tax-funded entity. They are there to serve the population of the community.
Yeah, and they won't buy just anything, but they will take requests and sometimes accept requests to carry a book that they don't currently offer, especially a newer book that maybe just, or a more like niche book that hasn't made it onto their radar yet.
Like if you don't see my book in your library, you should absolutely go request it.
That is a great example of a more niche book that you could request. The other thing is you can really easily, and I do this all the time with physical books, you can request holds through the library website. You know, the other thing I will say, Mike, that's just a tip as we talk about all of the services, many of the services that we're going to talk about, on some of this stuff, to get the services from your local library, you may need to be patient and plan ahead and come back frequently and ask for something. Well, this will make more sense as we talk about some of the services, but especially on books, like and this was one of the tips that someone shared on social media, is make sure you always have some books in your request list, because sometimes when I really want particularly a popular book on like Libby, which is where I'm going to listen to it as an audiobook or as an ebook, it sometimes will have like a 22-week wait for a really popular book. Usually it ends up being a lot faster because people return things faster. But some books have like a 2-week wait. Sometimes there's a 4-week wait, because remember, these are just like physical library books, in the sense that the library only has they've only licensed a certain number of digital copies. So they can't give out unlimited audiobooks. They purchased like 4 licenses to share an audiobook. And so only 4 of those audiobooks at that library can be out at a time. And so you're literally waiting for someone to turn back in their audiobook, even though it is digital. And I think that's an important thing to understand when you're dealing with the library. There's just times that you're going to have to wait for things. And same thing with some other services we'll talk about. Like there's a number that the library has that they can give out for like tickets and other things. And you have to wait for someone else to turn it back in. So you will have to, just like a lot of things we talk about with like travel hacking and other stuff, like you got to put a little bit more work in up front and sometimes be patient, but there's amazing benefits if you're willing to do that.
So let's get into the list of things that you can and should take advantage of in the library. And I think it's first important to recap what we all know is available at the library, but may have forgotten if you haven't been there since a teenager. They have physical books, they have audiobooks, they have ebooks. You can go to the library, you can get them on Libby or via Overdrive. They are free and connected to your library account. That is the fundamental structure of a library.
Yeah, I think we should just double click on the Libby piece for a minute, because that's the one thing. It's funny, even when I put the social media story up, Mike, that is the piece that I think that's what I discovered, a couple of years ago, and what you were complimenting me on introducing you to. But there's a couple apps. There's Libby, there's Overdrive, there's Hoopla. These are actually third-party apps that connect to the library. And they allow you, because you can do all this stuff directly through the library's website, but the user experience is poor. Like if you want to sit there on a browser and read an ebook from your library, go for it. But if you use these apps, you can actually like transfer them into Kindle. You can, through Libby, it's like an audiobook app, and Overdrive and Hoopla are similar. And you actually like one time sign in with your library card information. You download the app, it's a free app. You sign in with your library card information, and then it works kind of just like an Audible or something, right? Or a Kindle, where you're searching for books. The only difference is what I was saying earlier of sometimes there's a wait on a book. And so I always like to have a lot of things in my hold list. So I'll get surprised, like something will pop up and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I'm going to listen to next, because that's what's ready. So it's the difference of, you just got to be flexible and patient, and there's amazing benefits. But those apps alone are like a game changer for kids and adults.
Yeah. So on that note, kids' books are available in great quantities at public libraries. And so if you're like me and you visited the library where you were in high school and maybe in college and you were looking at nonfiction books, I was never really exposed or remember getting a whole bunch of children's books when I was a kid, but they are there, and my kids are now of reading age. We are taking advantage of this, and it's a great benefit.
Yeah, it's a great benefit. And like I mentioned, we've used, audiobooks on road trips. It's not when I was going to mention bedtime. It is not, I physically read books to my kids when they were younger at bedtime. But as they got older and we were like done with that and they wanted more, I was like, we could play an audio. You could go to bed to an audiobook just like I do sometimes.
Yeah, we just started that.
That's sort of like a second tier of reading after we had done the first tier of, us live reading. We can only do that for so long. It's a great thing when they can't sleep and when they kind of want to stay up and do something wholesome, but not be on a screen.
And then the last kind of just basic purpose of a library is that they have quiet spaces and computer access. And we've all seen TV shows where somebody's in a library and they're getting shushed. But I think we sort of disconnect the fact that like that really happens. Like there are real libraries where you can go and spend time, and some people really like that. And so if you want a quiet room to study or work on a project, you need access to a computer or a printer. You can do that at the library very easily.
Yeah. And some libraries, so they have like study rooms and private meeting rooms that you can book for free. Sometimes it's first come, first serve. Sometimes you can book them in advance. And you can't use them I've actually tried to book them before for like a speaker that was coming in town. You can't use them for anything that's like commercial in nature. But I walked in with my kids the other day and they wanted to study, and they're kind of loud it's like 3 girls, and it was my kids, one of my kids and their friends. And the librarian was like, the tables were all full, and she was the kind of community tables that are out in the open. Plus I was like, these kids are gonna be too loud. They're gonna annoy people. And the librarian was like, oh, we have study rooms. I saw some people in them and asked about them. She's like, oh, those are study rooms. She's like, you can book one. We've got a couple open right now. And it was like a little private room and had windows. I sat kind of like near them and could see them in there, and it's great and free.
So let's transition to some of the lesser known benefits and available products at libraries, Maggie.
Yeah. So I think one that I love and have not used as often, but have used before, is they have different events and activities for kids and adults. And they have different speakers that come in. They have exercise classes, craft classes. I was looking up some current stuff at like my library. They have like stories and s'mores. They have a graphic novel book club. There's a teen book club. There's story time for little kids where there's kind of like a themed reading, but like a librarian's doing it, but there's like an activity that's mixed in that's related to the book they're reading. They had a balanced robot craft session. There's a lot of different things that are reading related, and then just kind of like craft or exercise related, and in some way bettering yourself. Really, I don't know how to categorize the types of stuff. Pretty like wholesome stuff though.
Self-help.
Yeah, self-help, but also like crafts and just reading. I don't know, just everything. And every library posts a schedule of their activities like each week and month. And so you think about like libraries are usually done by county, and so I go to my local library, but there's like 10 libraries that are within a 3 to 4 mile radius of where I live. So, I mean, there's other libraries that are also close to me that are just not the one that I'm like used to going to all the time. And they all have different activities and events on a different schedule. And so it's worth checking out some of the different activities. Again, it's various different age ranges for kids and adults that could be appropriate. And I know a lot of people that used to take their kids to these programs, particularly like some of my friends that were stay-at-home moms and were available during the day, because a lot of these are during the day, that it was like a great free activity to take your kids to during the day.
This all sounds glorious to me. Just like quiet, very few people, lots of free stuff. I should go work in a library, man.
I have considered that in retirement, that would be a fun place to have like a part-time job just to kind of entertain me at some point. I love like every librarian I have ever interacted with. Like they're kind, they're helpful, they're interesting. So another really cool thing. I have so many cool things. We're not even going to go back and forth.
Run through them, Maggie. Let's hear them.
So tickets, they have almost every library has some fixed number of tickets to local attractions. Like for ours, like the zoo, the aquarium, a couple of different museums, state parks. And they work like books. They have like, for example, they have like 6 zoo passes at this library. They're either checked in or checked out. So when someone checks them out, and sometimes you have to like pass a little quiz or like do an education program to get that kind of goes with them, but you get free tickets to an event. Now, this is one of the ones where you got to be patient. And if you go and just ask your librarian, you're like, hey, the zoo tickets are like always gone. Got any tips for when I can actually like get them? They'll say like, hey, yeah, they're always here like Monday mornings. So just come on a Monday morning and like, they're always back by then. Right. So they're super helpful. And I just say that in general about librarians, like they're really helpful. So if you have questions about any of these services, ask them. My library recently, I noticed this like 6 months before COVID, has puzzles now too that you can check out, which I love because I don't want to own a puzzle. I do it once and then I don't ever want, I love puzzles, but I don't want to do them over again. Yeah. And so we check out puzzles and it's awesome. And every now and then they're like missing a piece, but someone has very friendly written on it, like missing 2 pieces. So you're not like, you know that it's missing 2 pieces.
Yeah. They also have movies to check out, music, magazines, newspapers. We reference tables and workspaces. They have free Wi-Fi. I mean, this is a place that is set up to accommodate a bunch of different needs.
And you know what they have in addition to free Wi-Fi? You can actually check out a wireless hotspot for 21 days at a time. And then you could use it for travel. You could use it for a bunch of, if you're going on a trip and you need it. And again, they're going to be checked out at times, but that's one where like go and ask the librarian, like, hey, how many of these do you have? Like, what's any advice for how I can like actually get one if I'm trying to plan ahead? You can also check out Chromebooks for a week at a time. So if there's something you need where, I don't know, yours is broken or you just want to try one out or you want to have your kids use it for some project and they don't have one. It's just a lot of different things where that could be a helpful resource.
And I guess the last thing to remember is that, and this is what's always been the most relevant in my mind because I remember using the library for school, is that they have access to all of these databases. And, you know, when we were younger, Maggie, this might have been like a microfilm and stuff, but this is all digitized now. And so if you are doing research you can't find online, or you have kids and they're doing school research projects, the library is going to be one of, if not the best place to get the information you need.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so let's wrap the tips up with some of the things we heard on social media. I'll just rattle through them. I'm not going to do too many repeats, but like 50 people said Libby. So that was one that, again, we love the Libby app. Go download it, check it out. Someone else said librarians know so many things, and Seattle Public Library has free museum passes and Wi-Fi hubs for free. So I think that's a pretty now common offering, because from Atlanta to Seattle, they're offering those services. A number of people mentioned like museum passes and different things that they have. 2 people mentioned libraries offer free online language learning, which I didn't realize. And someone else mentioned Rosetta Stone, that they were able to get access to that through their library. That's a great value and a great example that we had not mentioned. Someone else said libraries offer free technology classes from mouse and keyboard basics to JavaScript, which is pretty cool. So again, in the classes, they really do. There's a wide range and they vary by library. So again, check it out. Someone also said libraries are more and more bringing in social workers on staff to help folks navigate different resources. And then someone else said, research librarians actually want to help you answer questions like, who built your house, or how long will I live? And so using using librarians for help, there's at our library, there's like a place you check out the books, but there's an actual like center console where there is someone who is standing there literally to help you with whatever requests you have. And I've found them to be so incredibly helpful. Another one, Mike, their library, they started to borrow seeds of rare plants. So you borrow them, quote, and then you bring them back after they've grown new seeds.
That's awesome.
It's pretty cool, very creative. And that's the thing. I think a lot of local libraries can kind of somewhat start their own programs if there's a demand for it. A lot of people mentioned like interlibrary loans, that you can, all the different free programs. So someone mentioned like story time, which we were talking about with the kids reading, and a learning bus at their library. I don't know what that is. And once a month, they also have crafts. Lots of people mentioned, again, the museum passes. And yeah, so thank you for the extra tips and thoughts. It's always helpful to hear kind of what other people love about their libraries. And let's just close it out with some closing thoughts on libraries.
That was a great list of tips, and thank you for everybody who submitted them. I think the one thing to also keep in mind about libraries as a physical place you go to is that you won't be tempted to spend money. If you go to like a bookstore, I'm not sure those even exist
anymore. Or a coffee shop, more like a coffee shop.
You're going to spend money. Like you can't do anything without spending money. You're going to be tempted by anything. The library is a very safe space. It will protect you from yourself.
They don't sell anything at the library. That's the beauty of it. And I also, on that note, Mike, I usually make sure I bring like a water bottle and a snack with me if I'm going to be there for a while. They don't technically allow food, but you can very discreetly like take a sip of your, you just like don't walk in there with like, a bag of food from a restaurant or something. This is not like a place to have a picnic, but you can have like a granola bar and, discreetly, eat a snack if you need to. And it's a great place to, meet up with people to work on something and not have to, again, go to a coffee shop. And, coffee shops are super expensive. Like by the time you buy like a pastry and a coffee. Yes. And you can't, they're crowded. The other thing I would say is explore different libraries around town. Like I said, there's so many close to me, and some of them are like really cool and modern and have been rebuilt. And like, I've gone into some different libraries to pick up books with my kids, and they're like, oh, this, like, it's like exploring a new space they've never seen before. And some of them just have some really cool architecture. And so it's worth checking out, not just the one closest to you perhaps, but kind of using it as a place to check out other options around you. Also, your kids' schools have libraries. Don't forget that. It's a good reminder. The last thing to keep in mind, Mike, is hours, right? Libraries are not 24/7. So like my favorite library is open 10 to 5 most days. And then a couple nights a week, they're open till 8. And that's important because if you are working during the day, like it's not like they're open, just at night. So you have to kind of flex it, but they are open on the weekends. And so that is a great time to access a lot of these things. Okay, let's hit our top 3 takeaways.
All right. First key takeaway, join your public library if you are not already a member.
I love it. The second takeaway is to actually go visit it. Even if you downloaded the Libby app, physically go to the library and ask someone at the front desk about all of the benefits. They're also on the website, but I will tell you what, the librarians love helping people. So just ask somebody.
And then the last takeaway is to actually go and set up your digital app for audio and ebooks. You will love the experience. And like me, it will change your life because you will just find it so much easier to get what you want.
Yeah. And we're pro Libby, but there's a lot of other apps. We'll put a link in the show notes to them.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening. If you've been challenged or inspired by what you've heard, please rate and review the show. You can also subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode.
Yep. If you have any thoughts or questions, we always love to hear from you, and you can leave us a voicemail or text us at 404-981-3370, or you can hit us up on Instagram. Okay. Right. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Maggie.
Bye.
Bye.